2008 and 2009 were probably the worst years for Zimbabwe. 10 years later, and now under a new administration, how come the phrase, quote, worst crisis, describes the state of affairs yet again? Basic commodities, fuel, medicines, and cash are in short supply, and tensions are running high amid a humanitarian crisis. Does Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, carry the silver bullet? And why is the biggest opposition snubbing the reconciliation dialogue efforts? Welcome to the Politbureau. I'm Aldrin St-Pierre. President Cyril Ramaphosa jets off to Zimbabwe next month for bilateral with his Zimbabwe counterpart, President Emmerson Mnangagwa. But he walks into a country that remains under a political and now severe economic cloud. Joining us from Zimbabwe is the leader of the MDC, President Nelson Chamisa. Mr. Chamisa, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Firstly, how would you describe the situation in Zimbabwe, both politically as well as economically?
Well, thank you very much. We have a crisis of governance. We have a crisis of leadership. We have a political stalemate in the country arising out of a disputed election on the 30th of July. The result that was announced, the result that was put across is a result that did not invite the sincerity on the part of the Independent Electoral Commission, which was captured. So what we have is basically a stalemate. And we have not agreed in terms of the dialogue that we are supposed to have to resolve this stalemate. The issue of illegitimacy, the issue of Mr. Mnangagwa's disputed president and unstable president is an issue that we have to come to agreement with. We have said we are not going to participate in any kind of discussion that does not have an international arbiter that does not have a credible and
Mr. Chamisa, we seem to be losing you there. It seems like the connection there in the area where you're standing now at the moment is poor. We're going to try and re-establish that connection with Nelson Chamisa, the president of the MDC, speaking about the state of affairs in Zimbabwe and where Zimbabwe finds itself at the moment. He's also speaking there about the national dialogue. It was a dialogue that was set up by the president of the country, Emmerson Mnangagwa, after the stalemate that Nelson Chamisa has spoken of, to try and find a solution to where the country finds itself at the moment. And the MDC, of course, has snubbed those dialogues. There was an initial one that took place earlier this month and the second one that took place on Friday. And both those dialogues have been snubbed by the MDC Alliance. And we're going to be discussing with him what they expect from President Cyril Ramaphosa, who has said that he will be jetting off to the country next month. We heard earlier on that we've re-established that connection with Nelson Chamisa. Mr. Chamisa, let's just quickly then go into President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, jetting off to Zimbabwe to have this discussion with Emmerson Mnangagwa. Is there anything at all that you as the opposition feel should be raised with the President of South Africa?
Oh, yes, definitely. What we want is an inclusive dialogue. What we want is an independently monitored, mediated upon dialogue. What we want is the resolution of the crisis, political dialogue. We are ready as of yesterday to dialogue with Mr. Mnangagwa, but let it be a one-on-one dialogue to resolve the issues or disputes around the election, around governance, around the legitimacy. And once we are able to deal with that, we have comprehensive reforms in the country, around electoral reforms, around issues of peace building and nation building, so that we don't have a repeat of the problems we have had in the country.
When you say an independent mediator, what exactly would an independent mediator be, or what form does it take? Do you envisage something like we saw back in 2008, where you had SADC that had to intervene, and it led to the formation of a government of national unity?
Indeed, what we would want to see is a situation where we have perhaps a former president or some eminent African citizen to come and be the one to mediate and also to convene the dialogue. We have no confidence that Mr. Mnangagwa would just call us because he has issues to be put on the table. We have issues to be put on the table. So we need an independent adjudicator, an umpire or a referee, preferably from SADC or the AU, to resolve the issues that are affecting Zimbabweans. We have far-reaching and far deeper problems that cannot be resolved by one political party. Right now in Zimbabwe, we have two governing parties, the ruling party and the leading party, the MDC, the ruling party being ZANU-PF on account of the Constitutional Court's declared results. So we need to resolve that, so that there's an agreement on the way forward.
Mr. Chamisa, here's the thing about that, is that even though you would be calling in another mediator, whether it be a former president to mediate, but you already have a constitutional court, in Zimbabwe at least, that has taken a ruling and said that ZANU-PF, under the leadership of Emmerson Mnangagwa, were the victors of those elections. What more do you expect from SADC? Because I can imagine that the argument that would come from any of those eminent persons, whether it be as a former president, is that the sovereignty of Zimbabwe should be respected, as well as the constitutional court ruling.
That's right. Sovereignty of the people of Zimbabwe resides in two key institutions: the people as a sovereign authority, and also the constitution as a sovereign authority or organ. The two results. What the people voted for on the 10th of July is also supposed to be respected. We won this election with 2.6 million votes. And the fact that we won this election, there was a dispute because the result that was announced was a different result. So that dispute was taken to the Constitutional Court. The court ruled. The court is not a court of justice. It's not just a court of the truth. It is a court of law. The law took Mr. Mnangagwa to be the president, but doesn't take away the fact that the people voted. And that dispute has to be resolved. What the people voted for and what the Constitutional Court declared has to be a dialogue upon. And that's why there has to be political dialogue to resolve legitimacy. For us to be able to then shake hands and say, this is how we are moving this country. This is a divided country. This is a deeply divided country. We need to come together and be able to say, how do we move this country forward on the fundamental comprehensive reforms we want to see, but also on nation building, peace building, on resolving economic questions, on making sure that there's international re-engagement on the basis of an understanding of a catalogue of reforms that have to be implemented.
It is a highly divided country, but don't you think that you are further polarizing the country with the remarks that you are making? Like I'm saying that the Constitutional Court made a ruling that Emmerson Mnangagwa won the elections by 2.4 million, and you came in second with 2.1 million of the votes. Where are you going to...
That's not the position of the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court did not pronounce the actual votes Mr. Mnangagwa got. ZEC announced 3 different results, which results have not been authenticated or validated upon. These issues are even still issues of disputes, even in the Constitution, in the various courts in the country. I know our Vice Chairman, Mr. Beatty, is in court around the issue of the result. So this dispute does not get resolved just because the Constitutional Court has declared. It has to be resolved politically because the dispute is political. It's not legal anymore. Mr. Mnangagwa is there, fine. He is the one who is purporting to be the president of the country. But we want the will of the people to be respected and let there be political dialogue to resolve the fundamental issues we are raising. The debate of whether or not there is a division in the country is not because of what we are saying, but it's because of the reality on the ground, that people voted and their vote was manipulated. That issue has to be resolved. It has to be a political resolution rather than a constitutional court issue.
Okay. Are there any plans from your side, at least, or from the MDC side, to meet with President Cyril Ramaphosa when he is in Zimbabwe, I think on the 12th of March? And would be one of the proposals that you put on the table, would one of those proposals include a discussion that could lead to a government of national unity, which would include the MDC as well as ZANU-PF?
Well, for us, the preoccupation is not a government of national unity. The preoccupation is to make sure that there's a transitional mechanism to resolve the issues that are in the country. There was supposed to be the resolution of this issue when Mr. Mugabe exited the political scene, when Mr. Tsvangirai and Mr. Mnangagwa and some more veterans had agreed to have a transitional mechanism. This was betrayed. This was not done. Mr. Tsvangirai actually left this world a very disappointed man because he was betrayed on this transitional mechanism. We are saying, even belatedly, we need a transitional mechanism in the country which mechanism is then able to deal with reforms, is able to deal with the national healing, is able to deal with the economic questions of the day, international re-engagement, and making sure that we heal the nation, we bring the nation together. We move away from just being a country to being a nation.
Does that transition include a government of national unity?
Those are options that are open for dialogue, because what we want at the end of the day is to respect the vote of the people as voted for on the 30th of July 2018. What we can't afford to do, my dear brother, is to go into any other election without resolving the sanctity of the votes. What the people voted for must be respected, not for individuals in the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to manipulate the announcement of the vote, or some individuals, wherever they come from, coming to announce spooky results and then wanting the Constitutional Court to endorse those results and the people to be courted or to be forced, frog-marched into accepting that result. That will not happen. And that's why we are saying this issue has to be resolved. And we have said if Mr. Mnangagwa is not willing to dialogue, we are going to dialogue with him on the streets, because we have a democratic right in terms of Section 59 of the Constitution to occupy the streets. And obviously, when the people feel that we have to then negotiate around the occupation of the state, as and when this issue is resolved, will then be available for that.
Mr. Chamisa, I'm sorry, we need to wrap up this conversation, but just quickly, confirmation. Has President Cyril Ramaphosa confirmed that he will be meeting with you? Any confirmation from his side or from his office side?
Well, we have not received any confirmation from President Ramaphosa, but it would be a welcome invitation, because we feel that there has been this attempt on the part of SADC, the chairperson of SADC, president of Namibia, to listen to one side. We feel that in order to have a perfect picture of what's happening in Zimbabwe, we must have a view from both perspectives, the MDC perspective and the ZANU-PF perspective. And then we are able to then have a synthesis between the thesis by ZANU-PF and the antithesis we are giving as MDC. That way we are able to heal the nation and to move the country forward. So, yes, any invitation is welcome and we are ready for it. We have not yet received one, but we hope to receive it.
Okay, thank you so much, Nelson Chamisa, the president of the MDC, the official opposition in Zimbabwe. After the break, we come back to South Africa, where we face a crisis, our own crisis, that could muddy the waters ahead of the elections.